Hey. This is Individual Perspective Podcast. I'm your host, Daris D, McKinney, and I just wanted to come in and kind of talk to you guys about a mindset situation that I had. I'm actually a little rusty with the banners, you know what I mean? Give me 1 second. But anyway, I was watching uh, actually, I wasn't watching it. I was driving and I was hearing a commercial ad that came on. And it said, um, the key to success is knowing what counts. And I thought, like, yeah, that is definitely, if I can look over the last, like, hard couple years that I've been kind of really building myself and building the revenue gang that I would be kind of, or the revenue structure that I would be really milking for the next 20 years or so. And I was kind of going through, like, why was it so stagnant and slow, and the actual outcome of it was just so brutal. And it was that factor, knowing what counts, and that I'm so bullheaded to playing to what counts than the momentary things, or the clout the fantasy of clout and everything, and seeing the combativeness from playing to that or not playing to it, you know what I mean? And I think of, like, as a Black American, you have to first, I think, when you work with people or you partnership with people or something like that, you have to kind of have the blunt, rude, and abrasive conversations up front. And it's almost like you can't do what a lot of other corporate companies would do, or any company period would do, where you kind of you interview a person and you hire a person and stuff like that. Most of the time you're going to have to work from your immediate network or your peers that are accessible to you. And in that situation, you almost got to go through the psychosis of the people that's going to be around you, because it might call for them to do double, triple duty and really fight for the goal more than self-preservation, to be self-preservative. And I'm not saying use people or have people sacrifice themselves, but they have to make a decision if they're, like, ingesting or working or trying to improve an endeavor that will be fruitful to them for a long-term situation. So you almost kind of need people to come in with an entrepreneur mindset or growth or building mindset or something like that. You can't have somebody that's there for security, and not that you don't want to provide security, but in order to get security, you might need an overwhelming amount of sacrifice in order to get to that level. And I think if you don't state that up front, if that's not the driving force up front, you're going to get some things that may kind of slow things down or make things where it would be a little bit more valid than it needs to be, or how can I say, put you in a situation where the hold on a second. Let's see what's going on. Excellent. Okay. I was watching my stream. But put you in a situation where it might be where everything with the people around you and your crew and your cast and your executives or whatever it is, they might slow down the thing so much that you're gonna have to shift from being, like, for me, I'm a filmmaker, so I would shift from being a director to assistant director to an executive producer to a producer to, you get what I'm saying, to a coach to a cinematographer to an editor. To, I have to shift so many modes during the execution of all of the factors, because I got to equate what's going to happen later right now in order for me to know what I'm able to risk right now and what I'm not going to be able to risk to what the outcome will be in the end. So in that situation, you got to know what counts. And and what I mean by that is, if you were holding on to an identity that is irrelevant to where you're going or what you're trying to achieve, then that could play a factor. You know what I mean? So in the scope of this conversation, and I'm pretty much just want to come on real quick and talk about, I want to change this over. Sorry about that. Kind of as I'm talking to you, I'm messing with the software and everything. But even me, I have to kind of do this podcast solo. I don't really have like I literally would like to do it all day, but right now I'm in between what I'm doing on my movies and trying to pay for the roof over my head and everything like that. And I told myself, okay, while the situation allows for me to have a breather, I'm just gonna use that time to come on here and talk to you guys. You get what I'm saying? So, when you look at people like Booker T. Washington, J.B. Du Bois, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Sidney Poitier, Magic Johnson, Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfield, you get what I'm saying? Like the who's who of the power mecca. You get what I'm saying? The what's his name? Like a Will Smith, all these guys and stuff. When you look at what put these people in the prominent spaces and the prominent situation what they had, sometimes it is from my studies. If I was to tell you guys what you need to think of, what you need to equate to where you are, where you're going, and what's the flaws and why you're having a harder time or whatever the situation may be, you may find that sometimes it's genetics, sometimes it's the social environment, sometimes it's certain mental acuity going on, like an IQ or something like that. Sometimes it's the psychological reinforcement that's around you, or that you're accessible to, or you're taking in, that would be where you will find that would help guide these people to where they're at and the prominence that they are able to live. You know, I've seen people come from the inner city and stuff like that, but they had real intuitive and smart parents that kind of, even if it wasn't the most financially stable situation, the culture that's in the household, that's from the father, from the mother, was a mindset that I always tell people, most of the time, who you are and what you will be is from your 5 years old to about 13 years old. That can make you or break you for the rest of your life. And to overcome it will be very high functioning. You know what I mean? So in understanding that's, if you guys go out and go read a bunch of psychology books, go talk to a lot of medical professors and stuff like that, and look into the Surgeon General's handbook and the medical journals and stuff like that, and you go talk to a bunch of thousandaires or multi-hundred thousandaires or multi-millionaires or billionaires, you will find that successful entrepreneurs, successful businessmen, execs, high functioning people, you will find that a lot of their makeup and a lot of where they are is falls from that 5 to 13 years old. And I really feel, from everything I've known and everything I learned, that can make you or break you. You know what I mean? And for me, I had an enigma type of situation. I was around really good functioning people. Well, not really around them, but I had brushed up with them enough. You know what I mean? Father, mother, observing even things that I didn't like and that was not healthy for me. At least I was in the aura of it and evaluating, because it seems that when I was young, I was a very observer. I was a person that would look at the bird's eye view of things. So in that situation, I was kind of having an observation and taking in knowledge and taking in behavior and taking in things. And then on the other part, my fantasy world that I wanted to be in film, that I wanted to recreate things I seen on TV, and just I wanted to be I had a creative mindset, and that kind of gave me a little ability to want something bigger than the momentary thing. I want something that was outside what was my moment, what was going on at the moment and the life that I was living. So that kind of put me in a situation where I was always kind of out of the box, and it played a factor to me, even in my old, like going into my 20s and my 30s. You know what I mean? It played a major factor to me not kind of locking myself into a box. I kept myself broad spectrum. So whenever I did get into scenarios that was a little bit out of the box and giving me a little bit different opportunities and interacting with different type of people and stuff, I was ready to transition to it or react to it, because my mindset was always thinking of the possibility of that. So I was able to act on it because it wasn't such a weird concept when I got into it, because I always perceived it. I always tell people, if you want to well equip your family and loved ones to anything that could possibly happen, good or bad, in the world, take them to a gun range. Because when they hear the gunfire, when they hear how it sounds, and they feel how it feels to pull the trigger and have the gun just like jolt them, and really understand the actual physicality and the science of it, and the more they start to do 50, 100 rounds, 200 rounds, 300 rounds, it'll get them very equated to it. So if something pop off in real life unexpectedly, they won't freeze and be overwhelmed by the situations that's happening. They'll be reactive. They'll know what to do next, because they're used to the sound. They're used to the occasion. They're used to the danger of it and how to manage it. So that's how it is with life too. You have to preconceive where you're going, what you want to do, what you want to accomplish, and because you got to know the steps it takes to get there. So once you're in the environment of doing one step, you won't freak out about being in the one step. You do it, you execute on it because you preconceived it. So when you're there, you want more, because, hey, I know this part. I know how to accomplish this part. Okay, I did that part. So let's move to the next thing. that's how your brain will go. So the brain is reactive to references, or what I would call memory of, or something that's relative to the situation that you're in. So your brain automatically goes to the situation I'm in. Do I have some kind of relativeness to it? Do I have some memory of it? Do I have something that can I perceived, or I can go into my brain that has a similarity to it? So that's what the brain does, and it reacts to it. It reacts in that notion too. So if you don't look at life or things in a broad spectrum, you'll be too weirded out by it that you freeze and you don't take and seize the moment. So that's why I was saying that a lot of the people that we look up to, they had good, even if they say that, I grew up in the hood, but you had a good father, you had a good mother, you had a good teacher, you had a good neighbor, you had a good grandparent, you had somebody that put a psychological mindset in you from 5 to 13 years old that you move on in your impulse. And this is what Individual Perspective Podcast is. It's what I kind of bring people in to try to tell you. You might already have it, and I'm probably preaching to the choir, but individual perspective is when you get a control of your own perspective, meaning that it's okay to have control of it because your perspective lives in objectivity. It has an objective analysis to it that you wouldn't lie to yourself. So when you communicate, or when you live, and when you have things exterior, it's all fact-based, it's truthful, and it will live up to scrutiny from decades to come, because you're not a person that's built on fantasies and lies and perceptions. It's better true perspective, an objective perspective. So I always say my tagline is individual perspective is when your truth is the objective truth. Okay? And that's what we do on this podcast. And that's why I wanted to kind of come on and just give you guys that mindset of knowing what counts. And what counts is understanding where you're going and what it takes to get there. What's the steps it takes to get there, and just do them. And sometimes people don't like the path you're taking, the way you're doing something. But I always say, if you can't pay the cost to be the boss, then I don't even want your opinions, because I got to get through there the best way my circumstances gives me to get there. So a lot of people may not like the way I approach things, but I always say, I'm always willing to partner with people and take criticisms and direction and everything like that. But you're going to have to sacrifice what I'm sacrificing. And if you're not willing to do that, then I don't take advice from pontificators, people on the sidelines, scrutinizing and analyzing on the bench, you know what I mean, in the bleachers, you get what I'm saying? So when you're in the stuff, when you're in the major dirt of the situation, you're going to want somebody that's on the field with you, that's in it with you. And knowing what counts, it goes into relationships, it goes into human dynamics and business and everything. And knowing what counts is like what counts in what we're doing. No matter how bad it is or how good it is or how like the trials and tribulations of it, you have to look at each other. You have to look at what's going on and what's actually happening and say, what's the motive for that? What's the actual purpose of that? How does that count to where we're going? And if most of the things that the person or the situation is doing or happening, if it counts towards the overall goal, unless you could do better or or bring something better to the table, or initiate something better, then be celebratory and respectful to what's been done that counts towards the overall goal. And I know that sounds cryptic and everything, but the truth of the matter is, I'm kind of saying, like, I'll use my field for example. I know that, yes, in 2007, I'll say 2001, 2007, and 2012 were vital years for filmmakers, because in those years, the multi-billion-dollar editing ability has been given to the layman person, like a regular human being. That function of editing a film has been given to an average human being on the planet, effective of those years. The ability to capture a film to the density of the human eye has been given in that year. Like I said, 2001, 2007, and 2012. You had the ability for those things. And then the reason why I say that is because now the reason why your film doesn't play or feel industry is because how much money or risk did you take to create the environment and the accurate environment, and when you captured it, did you really capture it, that it could play to the human psychosis as it's been viewed. And I think those things are so much of a regular throwaway, because it's not, you can make money without really digging so deeply into presentation. So the industry does, every movie they make sure the sound is up to high standard. They make sure the visuals is up to high standard. They make sure the presentation is up to high standard. And they do it for like multi-millions of dollars across 2 to 3 years. Each movie takes 2 to 3 years, from writing it to casting it to setting it up to filming it to doing the actual execution of the presentation of it. About 3 years that you're seeing. The average movie, I don't care, love story, comedy, whatever. Don't let nobody tell you that ain't. The stuff that really counts, the real industry value of it. And then now we have, for the last, I'll say 2010, I don't know when Master P came out with his About It movie and stuff, but I'm going a little bit after that. I'll say about 2000, I'll be comfortable saying 2010. I know it was a movie called Envy that was from Ray J and stuff. I know that they, that's when the independent world was starting to put their hands into the industry, but they, even from that moment to 2025, the average independent film hasn't really lived up to the standard of Friday or Menace to Society or what's the other one? Boys in the Hood, New Jack City and stuff like that. They haven't really lived up to that stuff yet. And I'm talking about independent inner city, like low budget filmmaking. They haven't really lived up to that standard yet. And how they what they did to make the movie and to present the movie and stuff like that. But I'm gonna wrap this up very quickly. But my point of it by saying it is, as long as the true ability of a filmmaker is in the hands of everyone. In the editing tools, you can have something you can have an editing system that was made in 2002, 2001 and meet up to the highest standard of a movie that was delivered in presentation from I'll say Casablanca, Charlie Chaplin in 1920s, 1915, to a movie that was made like Titanic and Bad Boys, and you know what I mean, and Star Wars Episode 2 and stuff like that. Like, that's the range of your ability from software, editing software that was made in 2001. Cameras that was made in 2007. You know what I'm saying? And special effects that was made up to 2012. So that's why I say, if you really truly look at that range of ability, all the new stuff is like capitalist industry manipulation, industry psychosis to filmmakers. Meaning that the latest camera that was made in 2020, 2025, 2026, everything is all that technology and all the things that they're communicating that this is the standard. It's not really the standard. It's to stop you from being an average person, being in the field of filmmaking or even music making. They're trying to make you have to get this, upgrade your software to this, upgrade your operating system to this, and so we can stop you from using this. And when you understand that you already have the ability to take on the biggest industry, but are you willing to take the time and film something or do something, make a music or whatever? I always say making a movie is just like making an album. You know what I mean? You gotta keep writing and come up with hits, and maybe you wrote like 30 songs, but you only made 12 of those 30 songs, or 30 of those songs only made 12 made it to the album, and the rest of them you're archiving it. That's how it is for a movie. You really gotta love the process of how the viewer's gonna perceive what they're viewing, and you gotta really be methodical about it. So I only say this because you have to put this in your life and what you're trying to achieve and what your goals are and what you're trying to overcome. And sometimes you need to lock in and almost cancel out everybody if they're against what counts to get to where you're going. Okay? That's my message for today. This is Individual Perspective Podcast. I'm your host, Daris D, McKinney, and I'll see you on the next episode. And I got a lot of episodes I got to do too. So I'll check you guys out.